Separating the relevant from the irrelevant. Looking at players that I adore. Comments from Corbin on Favors and the role of the veteran in the offseason. It's all coming up on Tip Off. Boom, 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 boom. You shot 31% from three. Maybe that's why they told you not to shoot threes. Boom, 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 boom. You absolutely were caustic to everything that was going on. Maybe that's why you didn't play. Boom, 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 boom. You've shot 700 threes over 4 years and are shooting 33%, below 33%. There's only three other guys in the NBA that have ever done that, and one of them is named Kobe. Boom, 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 boom. It was laughable at times. It was hard to even listen to. Boom, 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 boom. That's tip off. I really feel like yesterday's media clear out is going to become the separator between the relevant and the irrelevant. And what I mean by this, and I'm not criticizing anyone. Will tell you what, at some point this summer, I may get bored and decide to light somebody up because I got enough ammo on somebody. I could just torch his ass like he's never been torched before. And I just might get bored enough one day to do it. I might just pull my CJ Miles Raja Bell. I had to let it out. Uh, I don't actually blame the news media. If I was working for anyone other than the team, I would absolutely be running with Raj and CJ for the next 24 to 36 hours, and I will discuss them here. Uh, but let me jump on what I thought was irrelevant out of yesterday first. I thought the most relevant thing that took place in yesterday's media clear out was Ty Corbin basically openly coming out, as he did for the last week of the season, and basically say, I think Derek Favors is going to be fabulous, and it's very clear that Favors uh, has become the cornerstone of the franchise, along with Gordon Hayward. That really, if we were wondering how long it was going to take for the Hayward Favors group, it happened a little differently than we anticipated, but I would argue that they have left the locker room as the leaders of this franchise. Now, there's veterans that are around, but really for the last month of the season or month and a half of the season, the best player on the team was Gordon Hayward. And then for the playoffs, Derek Favors was probably the best player. Al Jefferson's pretty good. Paul Millsap's pretty good, but those two have a potential level that they are scratching now that is beyond anything that those other guys have. And I thought that's what was relevant. It became very clear when you listen to Corbin, when you listen to Kevin O'Connor, that that's where we are. Corbin's comments that Favors can be a very, very special player. Um, my question to Kevin O'Connor, which is available in the Super Mega podcast, if he's pleased with where Hayward and Favors are at this point, I thought he pretty much answered that. I thought that was the key first piece of relevance. The second one I thought was probably the most important news, which I have been hearing inklings of for some time, but frankly didn't believe it was actually going to take place, is that Gordon Hayward and Derek Favors are going to go to Summer League, along with Damari Carroll, which was newsworthy. That will be number 3. Alec Burks, Enes Kanter, and if Jeremy Evans is signed or decides that he wants to go to camp with someone, it's going to probably be with the Jazz. So that is huge because here you have the two guys that have become the cornerstone of the franchise, and they're going to go do a little extra time in Summer League. They'll probably play 1-2 games. It sounded like the door was semi-open for the Jazz to possibly participate in more than one Summer League. Now, that may depend on if they end up with another draft pick or some other things of that sort. I'm not certain on how that stands. The only other one is Vegas, which the Jazz have been very much against participating in, but if they have this type of Summer League team, they could use Orlando for Hayward and Favors a little bit and then use the other one and then have Hayward and Favors bypass that. We'll see. But that sounded like that door actually might have been open a tiny bit yesterday. The next piece of relevance was Damari Carroll, who revealed that the team has a player option on his contract, which I didn't know, and made it sound as though they expect to sign him. and they told him that as much, and that he expects to come play in Summer League. Kevin O'Connor said, hey, we aren't going to make decisions right now because things happen, but sure, that's the way it seems. Um, and then I thought the last part that was most relevant was Al Jefferson, who really this year did a pretty fabulous job in the sense of veteran leadership as being the one who carried the young kids, and he just has more of that kind of effusive personality that brings guys together. And he is going to bring favors to Santa Barbara. He's going to bring candor to Santa Barbara. And he is going to continue to kind of be the leader of those big men. So I thought those were probably the most relevant. The next note, Paul's such a good guy. He didn't seem to have a. I kind of pushed him a little bit on whether he had a problem playing the three. He didn't seem to. But I'm not sure he loves it. And then the next one was Earl Watson talking about how he'll be looking up Enes Kanter in L.A. and he'll be looking up Alec Burks in Kansas City. And we're seeing veteran leadership taking these young guys and helping them along. To me, those were the most important aspects of yesterday. Now, there were two other stories out of it that I thought were less relevant. Three others. Kevin, I was pointed out by a friend that I always say two things. I'm wondering if this is true. She's in my head. Now, every time I say two things, I think, oh, there I did it again. The items that I thought were irrelevant. Kevin O'Connor saying that he would be perfectly willing to bring the four bigs back, and Tyrone Corbin saying he'd be perfectly willing to coach the four bigs again, I thought was irrelevant. It's possible. O'Connor was a good point. Hey, you need 4 or 5 bigs. We go get rid of one of them. We're short. On the other angle, O'Connor and Corbin have to say that yesterday. The statement about how big a deal Favors is, I think, was a fairly large statement. And I thought when I pushed O'Connor a little bit on free agents and whether he thought he had too many free agents, I thought there was some relevancy in that interview, which is the first interview of the super mega podcast, Locke or Clear Out. The reason it's irrelevant is because they can't say anything else at this point. They're not going to say to you, hey, yeah, we got to trade one of them. Or, no, it can't work again. You would devalue your trade hand. You would piss off your players. And if for some reason you couldn't get a deal done, then you end up with a real problem. So that's, a bunch of people are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Okay, they can't have said anything else. Into our next piece of irrelevancy. Hey, I like Raja. I get along with him well. This was a joke. Raja opened the year shooting 29% in the opening 4 games of the year. Got hot for January and February. Had a blow-up in Philadelphia that got him sent home. After that moment, he played in 1 game prior to the trade deadline. The team basically, he played, I guess, in 3 games. The team tried to move him at the deadline and couldn't do it. And then he had the knee and everything else, and then he wasn't a part of the team anymore. But something happened in Philadelphia that was significant enough that Raja got sent home. And those things, I don't think usually just get washed away. So this concept that I have no idea what happened, everybody else is unprofessional, no one acted like a man. Or the other angle is you really screwed up Whatever you did on that day in Philadelphia was significant enough that one, you got sent home, and two, you separated yourself from the franchise. I don't want to get into too many specifics here, but I will tell you the next day in Chicago, I asked two of our players, like, how big a deal? And their response was, oh, he's done. He's done. So the only one in that entire locker room that was stunned and surprised and overwhelmed by Raja not playing anymore was Raja. The story is very relevant to Raja. I think it's seemingly, if you look at team performance and you look at team reaction, I think it's pretty irrelevant. Okay? And I don't know where Raja could have helped. And frankly, I think that's pretty much what I think. I don't have a feeling that would have changed the season in any way. Raja still has some things he does well. It's probably maybe worth noting more than anything else that we are 19-20 on after the day Raja got sent home, and we won 17 of our next 27. I'd say his impact wasn't particularly big, or maybe what Raja really revealed yesterday that's most important is that there was a tremendously big rift between he and Tyrone Corbin. And a rookie head coach and a 35-year-old veteran, 36, 35-year-old veteran, had some sort of riff, and the team sided with the rookie coach. Pretty clear. Maybe that's what's relevant. The next one's really hard for me, frankly. The next one is C.J. Miles if you go back and listen to the Super Mega Locker Clear Out podcast, I'm doing this interview and I am stunned. I'm sitting in this interview having no idea what to do. C.J. Miles complained about three things. And let me just clearly say, I think I actually should just say C.J. Miles won't play for this team next year, and this just doesn't matter. And my next comment is, do you realize how much better we're going to be when C.J. Miles doesn't play for us? I mean, he is the statistical disaster for me. In my numeric world of looking at numbers and looking at players numerically, it doesn't get much worse than C.J. Miles. Now, I'm sure there's other things he brings to the table, but I run my numbers on CJ this year. He uses a possession well below the league average. He's an NBA replacement level offensive player. To his credit, he went to the free throw line 10% of his possessions, was an increase this year from the year prior. The year before, on Cringing Grin, which is the number that about where you use your possession compared to league average, in 10-11, he was a minus 67, zero's league average. So he was, I don't know how to explain it, but Ronnie Price was a minus 140, so he was dramatically, and CJ was a minus 67. Okay, this year CJ was a minus 66. It's not like this was an abnormality this year. Last year, CJ was a 2.4, which is slightly above the league average, and he went to the free throw line 8% of his possessions. And this year he went 10, which I give him credit for. The year prior, he was a minus 40 on my Cringing Grin. Okay, so for 3 years in a row, and he was a 3.9. He actually had a worse year this year, and he went to the free throw line 6% of the time. So I will give him credit on this. In some ways, he had a worse year this year, but he actually improved. And the number one way he had to improve, somehow Tyrone Corbin got him to get to the free throw line. The second part of this, there's been no larger supporter in this franchise than Tyrone Corbin. I mean, CJ Miles was in the rotation for a long time this year because Tyrone Corbin believed in him. And I'm not sure that another head coach would have had his back. In January, CJ Miles went 10 of 42 from 3 and 11 of 39 from 3. Maybe the reason you think you were told not to shoot threes is because you were shooting 24%. I mean, seriously. That interview was stunning. You just shot 38% for the field for the season, 30% from 3, 31% on the road, not from 3 for the season, and you're putting it on somebody else? Wow. The final person who got coupled into the communication issue was Devin Harris. And I don't. Devin really struggled early in the year. Devin wanted more pick and roll and wanted to run transitional differently, and that was a struggle. We talked about it all the time. But if I could give you a little insight on how this works, the interesting perspective would be Diana Allen, who's been a longtime Jazz blogger, does a nice job, and she's actually been given media access recently. Spencer Hall is doing a show with Bags and Jody today. They might give some insight as well. All of us have been in the media so long that I don't think we're moved by these things. Oh my gosh, I just looked at what time it is. I'm so late. It's crazy. And the last thing I would just say on that is, stunned. Is the way it works is once CJ and Raja make those comments, now every other player was asked about his communications issues with Tyrone Corbin if he had a problem. So we got one other person, Devin, who said at the beginning you had a problem. By the end, I was fine. Okay. All right, I got to go. Holy smokes, I'm 5 minutes late to wake up the kids. See ya.